the opening day of Major League Baseball. So it is time to start the Sunday previews of previewing each of the 6 MLB divisions. We are going back to the normal playoff format this year. The 5 teams, the 2 wildcard teams, of course, the 3 division winners. The rules that are returning from last year are the 7-inning doubleheaders and the runner on second for the extra innings, one I am not a big fan of. But the most importantly good news is that the minor leagues will be back. And this will help a lot of teams, as a lot of the prospects suffered a bit of a setback by not getting those live action plays in AAA, AA, and whatnot. Those alternate sites were just simulation games, and you really can't duplicate the live action of minor league baseball for those prospects. So we could see a lot more prospects be refined and honed now that they're going to be able to marinate in AAA and AA. That being said, it is time to preview the AL East. We're going to start there. I'm going to go from who I think is going to finish in the bottom to the top. We're going to start who I think is going to finish 5th. That will be the Baltimore Orioles. Orioles, at worst case, they'll probably finish with around 100 losses. Best case is they maybe get 70 wins. Best case scenarios, I think they avoid the cellar. That's where I think Baltimore's best case is going to be. The starting lineup's not looking too bad. The prospect pool is looking pretty good for Baltimore. At catcher, it's likely going to be Pedro Severino, and Chance Sisco will likely split reps at catcher until Adley Rutschman is ready to be up with the show. First base, it will be a platoon of Trey Mancini and Chris Davis. This could be Chris Davis's last year with the Baltimore Orioles. There is a real possibility that after the 2021 season, MLB could be heading into a work stoppage. So there is a real possibility that this could be the last run for Chris Davis. Mancini, I don't know if he's going to stick around with the Orioles all year. Maybe he plays well enough that he gets himself flipped at the trade deadline. Second base, Gold Glover Yolmer Sanchez. And then Hanser Alberto was waived. Competition can come from Jahmai Jones and Rylan Bannon. Rylan Bannon could be a guy that could probably compete with Rio Ruiz at third base. Ruiz has some power. The only problem with Ruiz, he cannot hit for average. Last year, his batting average was about 229. So if Ruiz wants to stay up in the show, he's going to have to get that batting average up a bit, or Bannon's going to probably take some reps away at third base. At shortstop, it's likely Freddie Galvis. Galvis, likely the veteran presence of this young Orioles lineup. In the outfield, it'll be Ryan Mountcastle, Cedric Mullins, Anthony Santander, and Austin Hayes. Those will be likely the 4. And then Santander, we'll see if Hayes can siphon at bats from Mullins or not. And then in the super utility role, Pat Valaika, Richie Martin could be a guy that could compete. And then there's Stevie Wilkerson, Ramon Urias, and, of course, Jones. And your possible starting rotation, John Means as your 1. Means likely the ace of the Orioles rotation. Former bad boy Matt Harvey, Dean Kramer, and Keegan Aiken, two of the younger mantelpieces of the starting rotation, and then likely slotting in as maybe your swingman could be King Felix Hernandez, who is another reclamation project on a team. And then you got Wade LeBlanc, who could be a swingman. Jorge Lopez. Rule 5 pick, Mac Scarola is and from Ellicott City, Maryland, Bruce Zimmerman are other options that could be either in the rotation or pitched out of the bullpen. And then your bullpen could be Cesar Valdez, Tanner Scott, Hunter Harvey, Paul Fry, Sean Armstrong, Dylan Tate, Travis Lakin Sr., Thomas Eshelman, Jorge Lopez. My verdict is Baltimore will be lucky to avoid 100 losses this year. But this year is not going to be about win or loss and trying to trend up at the end of the year and try to get as many of these baby Orioles up with the roster as soon as possible. So I'm kind of going to say they're going to lose I think they're going to probably finish around 64-98 where I think they're going to end up finishing last place. That's where I've got Baltimore. Fourth place is I'm going to say the Boston Red Sox. Boston bringing back Alex Cora after getting rid of Ron Renicky as kind of a placeholder. Kind of as a placeholder while Alex Cora was on suspension. Cora now back as being the manager for the Baltimore Orioles. Can Baltimore make a run at this point? Can Baltimore get back? Could Boston get back to being a contender in the 2021 season? At best, I think Boston is a 500 team. At worst, they could finish in the basement. What's going to hurt Boston is the fact that Chris Sale is going to start the year on the 60-day IL. So that is definitely going to hurt that's going to hurt Boston there. But they do have some pop in the lineup this year. Alex Verdugo coming in from the Dodgers will likely be your center fielder. Xander Bogaerts at short. Rafael Devers still back. JD Martinez, I think he's... Of course, you got JD Martinez, who still has some pop. Christian Vazquez. Hunter Renfroe now with the Red Sox. You got Frenchie Cordero. Bobby Dalbec, who is now up, and then Pique Hernandez coming up from the Dodgers. Now playing second base for the Red Sox. Likely on the bench, Christian Arroyo. Former Giant prospect Christian Arroyo could be coming off the bench. Marwin Gonzalez. And of course, Kevin Plawecki. Now that unfortunately Chris Sale is on the IL, it's likely going to be Nathan Eovaldi will be back will start in the rotation. Eduardo Rodriguez could be tasked with being the ace this year. Garrett Richards back with the Red Sox. Martin Perez and then Nick Pivetta could round out the rotation. Matt Barnes in the bullpen. Adam Ottavino. Ottavino could be a guy that could lock up the closer spot for the Boston Red Sox this year, so watch out for Ottavino. Ryan Brazier. Matt Andriese. Andriese can start. Andriese definitely could be the swingman of this team. Hirozaku Sawamura coming from Japan. Darwinzon Hernandez coming from Venezuela. Austin Bryce coming out of the bullpen. Josh Taylor and Garrett Whitlock. And then if best case scenario is maybe Boston contends. Second best scenario is when Chris Sale comes back, he's striking out people, and Sale pitches well enough to get flipped. Best case is Boston finishes third. Worst case scenario is Boston finishes in the ceiling. I kind of think Boston is going to be a team that hovers around 500 this year. This lineup has plenty of pop. I'm not confident in the starting rotation this year, so I'm kind of going to put Boston at around 75 wins this year. I think Boston, I'd say the ceiling could be around 81, 81. If they get 500, I think that's where Boston's ceiling is, around 500. That's what I got for Boston. Next, third place, the Tampa Bay Rays. Rays coming off losing the World Series to the Los Angeles Dodgers last year. And on top of that, the Rays lose Blake Snell, trade Blake Snell to the San Diego Padres. They did bring in a couple reclamation projects in Rich Hill. And you got Rich Hill, and you definitely got... And they bring back Chris Archer, who really came upon hard times with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Who could be catching this year? Mike Zunino, Francisco Mejia. The other question mark could be Randy Arozarena. Does his personal conduct start becoming a distraction for the Rays? In the infield, you got Ji-Man Choi, Brandon Lowe, Joey Wendell, Yoshi Susugo, Yandy Diaz, Mike Brosseau, and Willy Adames. Austin Meadows in the outfield, Kevin Kiermaier, Manuel Margot, and then, of course, Randy Arozarena. Your starting rotation, got three guys that are rehabilitation projects in Chris Archer, Michael Wacha, Rich Hill, Tyler Glasnow, who could be tasked with being the ace, and you've got Ryan Yarbrough. And rounding out in the bullpen, you got a swingman in Colin McHugh, who could both start and finish. Nick Anderson, Diego Castillo, Pete Fairbanks, and good grief, they got Hunter Strickland. And, of course, beanball specialist Hunter Strickland. Cody Reed and Shea McClanahan round out the bullpen. Who ends up closing? I think it's going to be Nick Anderson that closes. Colin McHugh could be a guy that could replace Chris Archer if Archer does struggle in the rotation this year. And then you got Luis Patino, who will start in AAA. But who knows? Can Kevin Cash hurt his reputation a bit with that questionable decision to remove Blake Snell when he did in the World Series? Could he be trending down this year? Absolutely. Will the Rays have a regression this year? I do. I think the Rays are going to regress this year. They are lacking that ace. The bullpen's likely going to have to eat more innings this year. With the lack of that true ace, best case scenario is Tampa's back in as a wild card. Worst case scenario is Tampa finishes fourth. I think Tampa will finish a solid third. I've got Tampa right around 500, 81 and 81s, where I've got Tampa, no playoffs. In second place is the Toronto Blue Jays. Toronto looks like an up-and-coming team. The bad news is they are not going to be able to play in Toronto this year due to COVID issues to start off the year. The good news is they're going to play probably in their spring training facility in Florida, where they're likely going to be allowed to have fans in the stadium in Florida. So that is really good news for the Toronto Blue Jays. But this lineup's definitely going to have some pop. They bring back Robbie Ray, who is a good pitcher. They bring in a guy who can hit with George Springer. Springer going to be in the outfield. You got Marcus Semien from the Oakland A's, another guy with power at second base. Got Bo Bichette. Teoscar Hernandez, a bright prospect. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., another bright prospect. Cavan Biggio. Lourdes Gurriel Jr., Roddy Tellez, and Danny Jensen at catcher. This is going to be a young team that is going to hit a lot of long balls this year. I think the Blue Jays definitely are going to have some pop in the lineup. And then your starting rotation, Hyun-Jin Ryu. Ryu looking to rebound from a pedestrian year. Robbie Ray, who pitched better with the Blue Jays and is back. I think, can Robbie Ray pitch more like the Robbie Ray of old, who can be an ace at times? Tanner Roark, a serviceable bottom end guy. Roark didn't have the greatest of years last year. You got Steven Matz in the back end of the rotation. And Nate Pearson, who is an up and coming starter. But having two guys in Ryu and Ray, experienced guys who've been there and done that. But I honestly don't think the Rays are done adding pieces just yet. You've got Tyler Chatwood, who could be a swingman out of the bullpen. Ross Stripling, another swing guy who can get you innings out of the bullpen. You've got Julian Merriweather, Kirby Yates, who's likely going to close this year for the Blue Jays this year. Jordan Romano, Rafael Dahls, Ryan Baruki, David Phelps, and Anthony Kay. Toronto at best will likely make the wild card. Worst case scenario, they finish under 500 and closer to third place. I've got them around second place. I think they're going to win about 87 games this year. Ceiling could be 90 wins. Floor could be around 75. The pitching's not the most solid, but it's serviceable. But the bullpen is going to make up for what ails them in the starting rotation for right now in Toronto. But Toronto, I think, will be a wild card team this year. But due to COVID restrictions, the Blue Jays will be playing at their spring training facility in Florida. But maybe the second half of the year they can get to Toronto as more and more Americans and Canadians get vaccinated. But the good part is, being in Florida, they will be able to have fans in the state at their spring training facility. And that's a small victory for the Toronto Blue Jays to see an up-and-coming Toronto team. And of course, who I think is going to finish first and win the AL East this year? The big bad New York Yankees. Yankees coming off a disappointing postseason campaign in 2020, looking to get back on track in 2021. But I think this could be Brian Cashman's last hurrah. But it'll be Gary Sanchez and Kyle Higashioka at catcher. Gary Sanchez definitely looking to rebound from what was a very disappointing 2020 season. First base, it will be Luke Voigt with Mike Ford coming off the bench. Second base, Tyler Wade and probably DJ LeMahieu at second base. Yeah, it'll be DJ LeMahieu. That's where he's got DJ LeMahieu at second. Gio Urshela will likely be a guy who could be a guy who could hit maybe a lot more bombs this year. But definitely a good defensive guy at the hot corner is Gio Urshela. Shortstop, of course, Gleyber Torres. Torres looking to rebound from a disappointing 2020 season. And of course, you got the big bad outfield with Clint Frazier, Aaron Hicks, Aaron Judge. And the big guy who left was Brett Gardner, who is still a free agent. And your DH, now going to go full-time DH this year, is Giancarlo Stanton due to his injuries. Stanton probably would come off the bench, but he is certainly going to be a guy that will be a full-time DH this year. And then you get the Yankees starting rotation. You got Garrett Cole, of course, your ace of the rotation. Jordan Montgomery. You got Corey Kluber. Kluber, you're likely going to slot in as your 2. Jameson Tylon as your 3. Jordan Montgomery as your 4. Domingo German and Luis Severino could be fighting for that last spot in the starting rotation. And rounding out the bullpen could be Aroldis Chapman. Chapman, a bit of a concern this year. Chapman's velocity is starting to decline a bit. Chapman had a bit of a regression last year. You've got Zach Britton, Chad Green, Jonathan Holder, Luis Cessa. The bad part is the 10-5 comes in for Chapman this year if he struggles. Zach Britton, Chad Green, Darren O'Day now joining this lethal bullpen. So definite Albert Abreu coming out of the long relief. Justin Wilson. And then Severino right now out due to Tommy John. We'll see how quick Severino could get back into the rotation. But I think at best case scenario for the ceiling for the New York Yankees is around 105 wins. Floor is around 85 wins. Floor would also be third place for the Yankees if things really go off the rails for the Bombers. But I think I'm going to have the New York Yankees around 95 wins this year. Yankees win the East. Yankees make the playoffs. And could this finally be the year if the Yankees, I think, fail to sniff the World Series this year, it could be curtains for Cashman. That's what I've got for the AL East. Next week, we talk about the AL Central. Everybody, we are 1 week away from spring training. So have an awesome Sunday. Have a good day. Goodbye.